Hi, thanks, Francine. Good morning, guys. So the topic that we're going to discuss today would be Microsoft Dynamics GP Web Client. Now, most of y'all would know the difference between the rich client and the web client. However, we are still going to just mention it. So when we hear rich client or fat client, it's where your Microsoft Dynamics GP application is installed locally on your machine. All right, so all your data would be stored on your machine or on another server somewhere for you to access. Now, when we're talking about GP web client, it allows users to access GP. You could access it anywhere from any workstation via web browser, and it allows users to be more productive because of that. So now back in 2013, back when GP 2013 was released, that's when web client was first introduced. It was not as great back then at that time. It was a bit clunky, but with the new and improved GP web client, it now comes with the HTML5. And with HTML5, it now allows you to operate the GP web client on most browsers. So you can access it whether it's from Safari or Firefox or even Chrome. Now, the nice thing about GP web client is that you're also able to use it on your iOS device or your Android device. So if you have an iPad, you can access the web client or any Android devices as well. So fast forward to GP 2016, that is when HTML5 was actually introduced. So those of you who are running GP 2016 onward would be able to capitalize on that feature, which is the HTML5. Like I said, it works with most browsers, and it's better than what was originally introduced prior to 2016, which was the application being written in Silverlight. So what you now have is something that would mean better performance for you when you're accessing your Microsoft Dynamics GP application, whether it be from your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, your smartphone, etc. All right. Now, when we talk about the web client, there are some initial setups that need to be done. And once that is done, you would have a great experience using the web client. Some things to note when you are accessing the web client is just a simple username and password. It's usually your Active Directory user logon that you'll be using to access. Also, there are some things that may have changed, but it's not any drastic change. You may see some of the tabs placed differently on the web client as opposed to the rich client. Smart lists, which is familiar, you are able to access your smart lists and export to Excel just as well as you would the rich client as well. The navigation on the GP web clients, like I said, it's familiar, so you shouldn't have any issues through navigation, but we'll go through the navigation process when I do access the web client. Now, though we have some benefits with regards to accessing GP web client, there are also some drawbacks in terms of it's not going to work with Integration Manager. So it's not supported with Integration Manager and maybe some third parties, right? You would get the functionality of being able to use the web client with some third-party add-ons, but not all is supported. So with this feature, it's free with GP. So you can set it up you can't test it out, you can't see what third-party functionality works with the GP web client. And yeah, it would be actually a great process for you to go through. And if you guys do need further assistance with that, we are always here. You can always shoot us an email, and we can further assist with the setup. Now, another important thing to also remember is that with the GP web client, you can use it as a hybrid, meaning that you can keep your full desktop client, which is a rich client, for users who need to leverage those add-ons, and the GP web client could actually be used for everyone else, right, who may not need to do that much integration with GP. All right. So in terms of the setup of the rich client, of the web client, firstly, on your setup for your application of GP 2018, there's a product listed under additional products called web clients. Now I have mine installed already, so I'm going to access it from the control panel so you can get a bit of an insight of what the setup looks like. All right, so when it's installed, it's going to install something called a GP Web Components. I'm just going to alter mine a bit. All right, now, because I have this installed already, you're not going to actually see the first page that would usually come up, but it's going to ask you if you want to install it on a single machine, or if you want to do a custom install to install your web components. All right, so once you have done that, here you would specify the server that would manage your session central database, and you would supply your SA credentials. All right, the SA credentials usually have all the permissions for access. Right, so this is your session central service. You're entering via the domain credentials. Right, here you're going to enter your web client user and your web management console users, its Active Directory as well, and it could be found using the select option to browse for your Active Directory user. Here with the web components, basically this GP runtime process creates a connection to the Dynamics GP database. So you would just need to supply a SQL login and password here for that purpose. All right, once you click next on that page, you're going to be prompted with your website configuration page. Now here you would select which website hosts your Dynamics GP web client. So for me, it's the default website, and this is set up in IIS. So we'll go to that in a bit so you can see how that's set up. So you select the website that's configured to host your websites, which is default website for me. And then I'm going to enter my domain login credentials. Right? Just remember that your site must be configured using SSL. For this demo, I'm currently using a self-signed certificate, right? But if it is you have a certificate provider like GoDaddy, for example, you can set that up to host your GP web client. All right, so here I selected the certificate that I created using my self-signed certificate in IIS, which is GP web client, and then you provide the credentials for that access. It's going to provide you with a default port. Those ports are accepted by default. All right, so here you're going to configure your runtime URL. So you're going to enter the same thing. You're going to accept the port. Now this port here is actually the port that you would have created in IIS. The default port would have been port 443, but you can manipulate that to configure whichever port you would like to have your web client run. So sometimes you may have another program already utilizing port 443, and in that instance, you would not be able to run the GP web client. So you would have to use a different port for that purpose, right? So once you have that configured, it would be defaulted as the port that GP web client is going to use, and then you click next. Right, so here we also specify the certificate. So this is for different services. So this is the GP web service. So there's a lot of services that during the course of the installation that requires the certificate and requires authentication. And that's basically what is being shown here, right? So we're just going through the setup process. All right, I'm not going to repair. I just went through that so that you guys can see what is needed for the initial setup. There's also another component that needs to be installed, and that would be in your Microsoft Dynamics GP area. And it's called Web Client Runtime. This feature also needs to be installed to utilize GP Web Client. Right. Another mention is that there are some prerequisites in terms of the rules and features that you have to install via Server Manager. Right? So for those of you who are interested in installing web clients and would like to know what these rules and features are, those can be sent to you guys, right? But you set it up within here, and once you have all the rules and features selected and ready for configuration, you just go through the process and have them installed. All right. So now that we are completed with the configuration, the next step would be the Ssl certificate. So like I said, that's done in IIS. Right? Here I currently have my default website. And under my default website, I have an Ssl certificate created. Right, my Ssl certificate, as we saw during the configuration setup, was the GP web client. It's currently running on port 480. Right, so once you bind that Ssl certificate to your port, you are going to be able to launch your web client browser. So I currently have it open here, right? It's the local host with the port for you to be able to bring up the web page. Now, if it is you're hosting this from a client's PC, you won't be able to use localhost. In this case, you'll be using the fully qualified domain name of the server with the port. Right? If you use localhost, you would not be able to connect. The fact that I'm running this from the server is why I'm able to connect using the localhost. Right, so after you enter the URL, you're going to be directed to this login page, and you are going to be able to access the GP web client. So this is the sign-in page for it, and I'm going to access it using my Active Directory user. With my password. Now you have the ability to set up single sign-on capabilities. So once you have that configured, and once you have it configured correctly, you could have that functionality to just use single sign-on. So once you're logged in into your Windows account, you'll be able to go directly into GP without having to use a password. All right, so we're just waiting for it to load. All right, so here you can see the same interface that you would usually see with the rich client. It allows you to enter your user ID and password for GP. And if you have multiple companies, you're going to be able to choose your company. Now, like I said, the biggest difference that you may see, and it's not really anything to complain about, but the biggest difference is where the buttons exist via the web client from the rich client. So for example, so this is the web client interface, right? You have the same layout in terms of the modules. The only difference is that on the rich client, it's down to the bottom, and with the web client, it's up to the top. Also with the home page, where you have in your rich clients, you could set it to have different tiles. The home page is more of a slide. So you have one slide across for this home page. It's not broken up into the multiple tiles where you could have 2 columns or 3 columns coming down. With the area pages, it's pretty much set up like the rich client, as you can see. And I wanted to show you in terms of the buttons. So if we were going to go to sales, and let's probably check out the customer card. Right? So whereas on your GP client installation that's on premise, you would usually have these buttons to the bottom, but now with the web client, they have it to the top, right? These are standard, these were always here, but now the buttons in terms of the customer account address, they have now moved to the top. So another difference is that with the rich client, you were able to open multiple windows at a particular time, and you can view them side by side. With the web client, that is not possible. So you could only utilize one window at a time, and you aren't able to click on any other window to have that open. However, they do have a feature which allows you to open up another window. Like I said, you can't utilize them both side by side. Once you click on this search icon here, it opens a search for forms and reports window. Now this allows you to type anything in this window here, and it brings up any related window, or whether it's a report or whether it's a setup entry window, anything that's related to what you have typed within the search bar. It gives you that flexibility of choosing one of the following. So by typing sales, it's going to give me a list of sales related windows, which is a great functionality. So if it is you're looking for sales setup or sales transaction window or sales inquiry, it's a nice search form for you to use. You can select another particular window that would open up. However, once you're finished within that window, you would have to close out of it in order to access something else, right? So the one that I had underneath now becomes grayed out, right? So I can't do anything with regards to that previous window. All right. So let me close out of that. Now, in terms of smart lists, you are able to generate reports the same way you would on the rich client, right? The feel is the same. It may look slightly different when viewing the report, but all in all, it's the same, right? You are able to export to Excel or to Word, and you have all the same functionalities. Right? And those of you who are interested in using workflows, that was one of my previous sessions that I had. Workflows can also be set up within for GP web clients, and that can also be accessed and approved, rejected, delegated all the functionality that you would be able to do on the rich client, you are able to perform that here. All right, so you would usually go to your area pages, go to your administration menu. Go to your setup pane. You can access the workflow setup. It's going to pull all the information that you had configured previously, as well as within your workflow maintenance. It's going to also pull whatever workflows that you had set up prior. All right. So GP Web Client is pretty simple when it comes to setting up and configuring and utilizing the functionality. It mimics GP on-premise, right, with a few minor setbacks, which is not major at all in terms of, yes, you may not have integration manager, and you may have one or two of the third parties that you may not be able to install alongside using web client. However, like I said, with the hybrid feature, if it is you want to utilize some functionality that you can't with the web client, that could be done on premise. And for others, you can utilize it online. Just for the mere fact that you can be on your mobile phone, or you can just bring up a browser from wherever you are to get some work done. It makes the organization more productive, and it allows users to be able, instead of probably you may have a VPN access, which may cause some issues in terms of getting access to that VPN. Just shooting it up on your browser on your PC makes life a lot easier. All right, so with this demo, it's not a long demo because the web client is so simple and straightforward. But if you do have any questions for me, I would be glad to answer them. All right, so it seems as though you guys are great with the presentation. Like I said, if you do decide to set up the web client and you do run into any issues, you can always send us an email. You can shoot us an email at optimus.guru, or you can also shoot us an email at operations@optimus.guru. Right, we will get whatever feedback is required to you to assist you with your setup. Seeing that we are during the times of COVID, I know a lot of people are looking for different avenues to be able to get more out of working from home or whatever situation that they currently have set up. So GP Web Client is actually a great way to start. And like I said, we are here if you do need assistance in any way. All right, so seeing that no one has any questions for me, I would like to take this time to thank you again for being supportive, guys, and always coming in and joining the webinars. It is beneficial for you all in the long run, as you learn a lot and you can take it with you and implement it on your own. So thank you so much, guys, and please enjoy the rest of your day.